Good evening. You're listening to Skip Intro with Kelvin Yee, Ian McNally, Bahid Yusuf, and Julian Yap. Today, we're talking about Netflix's Street Food Asia.
If someone has to taste a real food, authentic food, it has to be street food.
There's a culture of eating outside, drinking outside, hanging out outside.
Always like a party going on.
It's a chaotic paradise of food.
It's a portal to a world of culinary heritage. People have been doing that same dish for 40, 50, 60 years. They never went to culinary school.
In the city of 10 million people, almost 1 million make a living by selling on the street.
So it's been out for a while now, and because we haven't done this yet, it's about time to do it. I continue to be quite disappointed till today that Malaysia isn't in it, but why don't you give us the lowdown on what Street Food Asia is?
Yeah, we wanted to do this show earlier, but I had to wait a while for you guys to calm down.
Yeah, there's a general sort of...
Once you put down the flaming torches and pitchforks, I thought it was time we could
Once
talk
we
about the
could
show.
wipe the foam off our mouths.
That's
when we decided
and
to
the
record
spittle
this.
off our phones, right?
And then by that point, your mouths were drooling and you wanted to get some street food.
We wanted to get some food, yeah. So
We should give the list of the shows, the countries that did get covered. We got Bangkok, Thailand, Osaka, Japan, Delhi, India, Yogyakarta, Indonesia, Chiayi, Taiwan, Seoul, South Korea, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, Singapore, and Cebu City, Philippines. Only Singapore is just Singapore.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's like Madonna, just one word.
Because what else are you gonna put, right?
So I had it before, like all the
brouhaha.
Yeah, the brouhaha. I kind of had been looking forward to this because I really enjoy Somebody Feed Phil, and I really enjoyed that show because you get to see Phil go to places and eat these things, and I mean, you get a bit sick of the same look of joy on his face every time.
I don't know. It's a really magical look of joy, though.
But you get that magical look, and we skipped through it. We didn't watch it in order because we wanted to start with the Bangkok one, and we'd seen the J5 lady before.
Yeah.
Like, that was my first inkling that things weren't going to be fantastic with the show, in that she's been on YouTube channels, she's been on some other cookery shows. You know, she did a lobster omelette, is it?
The
Yes.
crab
omelette.
Crab omelette,
Yeah,
yeah.
and she cooks with ski goggles on and
Yeah.
stuff. Like, she's an institution there.
Yes.
And I suppose you can't do a street food show without hitting those high points. But the structure around it kind of put me off.
Yeah, it's got a really weird structure.
I do not like this structure. God. And starting with Bangkok was such a good idea, but badly executed.
It's great on
right?
paper, but
Yeah.
it doesn't quite...
And it's almost a little bit disappointing when you start, because if you do know Bangkok street food and you start going into it, and this lady just straight up does tom yum, she does pad thai, she does omelets, like it's never that
These omelets, though, are the
exciting.
size of your head.
That's fine. Her dishes are about 100 ringgit each, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah,
like
no,
the
they're more
big
expensive.
bucks.
The omelet is more expensive.
Yeah. But like the idea of just, it's a 30, so every episode's 30 minutes, and you're introduced to her and you learn her story, and then like slowly you're introduced to one
of other
other guy
people.
who does like noodles, and this other person who does, I don't know, something else.
I don't
And
know, I think-
you have to go back to this lady.
They keep weaving back and forth between
I think your description of being introduced to other people is giving them a little too much credit,
you
because
see them for a minute.
you are
tops.
given very little
Yeah.
introduction to these
and
other
then to
guys.
go back to this lady and then to hear her life story, it almost feels a bit wasted, because you just think there are so many other foods we could have covered
Yeah.
right now, but we had to go back to learn about her story. But I feel that format I grew into over the series.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the person.
Yeah, I think like the character of Toyo from the Osaka Japan episode is an
a character.
enigmatic character, right? You want to watch him. He is a little gruff. He at one point he just tells he's grabbing a box of ice and he just sort of like hands to these salarymen like, hey, can you just put that back for me?
Yeah.
You know,
And they do.
And they do, right? So it's this really big joke. This guy is a character.
There's a bit when he just lights his cigarette with this massive
With his
blowtorch.
blowtorch.
Oh my
Because he can
God.
cook faster with a blowtorch.
And how he cooks with his hands on this tuna thing. I was freaking the heck
It's
out.
fascinating. He has a bucket of ice and he puts
Ice
his
and
hand,
salt,
ice
yeah.
and salt, and then he has the thing that they use for like putting tar on roofs.
Yes, yeah. It's like
for cooking,
it's
and he
not
uses his
it's a
hands
no
so then
joke.
the tongues won't damage the fish.
The fish,
And
yes.
it's like, you lunatic.
And I think it's weird because, again, to go back to that format thing, right? So you're following this character, enigmatic, you want to watch him, you want to hear his story, he's got a great story, and then suddenly you go out and talk to some guy making takoyaki.
Yeah.
And then you come
And it's
back.
like they interviewed him at a stall over the course of half an hour.
Yeah, it really feels that way, right? You get no depth to the character. You get, sure, the shop's been there for 100 years, or he's trying to get to the 100th year or whatever, and it's generational, blah, blah, blah. But there's nothing there.
Yeah.
You don't see his recipe. You don't see about his family. You just interview him. It looks like it's done over the course of maybe a couple hours, and then you go back to Toyo. So you really break that flow of being engaged in this character.
And the Toyo story had a weird flow anyway, because when they're interviewing him on camera and he's working in the stall, he's basically this pookish kind of character.
Yeah.
He's always making jokes and dragging people from the queue in to make fun of, have fun with them. But then when they also have like some slice of life segments, which felt like it was shot before they gave the brief.
Yeah.
And he's got his glasses on and he looks like the Dalai Lama just walking around buying fish.
Yeah,
He seems very chill. And I get that it's an act, but they don't really reconcile those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the flip side to that is the Cha Yi episode in Taiwan. There's the guy who makes 3 goat stew thing in the pot.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, this is cool. He's got a pot and he's pouring in stuff. I was like, what's that? Rice wine. Okay, this looks interesting. And
then they cut away.
No, they cut away, but they come back and he's putting his hands like, is that the goat meat that they've got in some kind of sauce? Like, no, it's clay he's putting on the top of the pot. Then he puts on a gas mask, goes into this human-sized oven, like it's like a living room in the house, essentially, buries the pot. They go through this entire thing. He talks about how the smoke in the house has damaged his kids' lungs over the course of like a minute at a time throughout the whole episode.
Yeah.
And at the end, no one tells you what it tastes like.
I missed this episode.
Oh,
So
you missed this one?
I missed this
They
one.
do this over and over and
This
over
is
again.
the issue with the show that I have, right? So I love food shows. I love seeing, I want to know what it tastes like. I want to visually enjoy it and then imagine what it tastes like. And none of these dishes are described. Some of them do as you go along. When we get to Delhi, they start explaining, it's chickpeas, it's potatoes. We start actually
Yeah, but listing
explaining
the
it.
ingredients doesn't.
It doesn't,
That's why you
yeah.
need someone on screen, and they have people on screen. They have in Singapore, they have the guy who formed Makan Sutra.
Yeah.
They have actresses and TV personalities and chefs.
Yeah.
And then they never eat, or they eat and they don't. It's like yum, I'm off.
Which
Or they just
I
eat in the background, right?
Which I
Yeah.
understand what they want to do there, right? Like, I get that they wanted to do something different for this food show because we've seen so many times. We've seen Anthony Bourdain do all these places before, and that's okay because if you want to see that, we can just go watch that show.
Yeah.
And I get that this was supposed to be a sort of, I don't know, like a capsule sort of diary
Highlighting the
thing.
food rather than a person.
Highlighting the person instead of the food.
Oh.
Yeah. Capturing their story, right?
Yeah.
These people who, a lot of them have succeeded with these businesses out of poverty.
Yeah.
And a lot
The
of them
lady in
because,
Yogi Character who's like, they start work at
Yes.
3 a.m.
Yeah.
and she sells at a stall beside the road.
and she's
That's
supporting
fantastic.
10 people.
Yeah.
Man. And I get that because, these are a lot of stories that we are not going to be able to hear.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not the only person, but like, how many times have you been to a restaurant with your family and your parent or your grandparent says, I used to come here when her dad was running this store,
Yeah.
and now he's passed away, and now she's running it. And it's a lot of this is born. It's a family thing. It's a preserving tradition and not letting it die. But it's also a means of survival. And I get that that's what they want to focus on. But that's also the highlight, but also the low point of the show for me because one, you don't get to know what the food tastes like. We get flashes of the food made really pretty in some sort of like set design.
At the end of the
way.
top-down camera puts in, and it's like, and then they start throwing up dishes that they might have mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's like they had an hour-long version, but they cut out the udon section.
yeah.
And just like, here's the
Just
udon.
like-
It's like,
Yeah,
I
here's
know nothing
other
about this.
here's other foods you can get in Japan.
Yeah.
I think it feels like a travel program masquerading as a food program.
Ooh, interesting.
Like, it
yeah.
shouldn't have been called street food, but it shouldn't be called street people. But like street food people or something like that, or what goes into your street food. Because that aspect of it is is good. Though you get to see these people you would just pass by and never even think of the time they put into making these dishes. And some of them sell one dish.
Yeah.
And that's all they do their entire lives. And that's fascinating.
Yeah.
But for me,
But I need to know what it tastes like.
For
I'm
me,
so like, it's like, this looks so good, but I don't know what. I have no idea what that goat thing is. And like making this stew is killing this man, and I have no idea why.
Now, if you have any thoughts about Street Food Asia, you can send it to us on WhatsApp 018-789-8899 and on social media, we're at skipintro.my. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let us know. More after this, BFM 89.9.
Break from mediocrity. BFM 89.9.
Hello, it's Skip Intro with Kelvin Yee, Im McNally, Bahi Yusuf, and Julian Yap. We're continuing our conversation about Netflix's street food series, this first one with a particular focus on Asia. So earlier, of course, we highlighted some of the many issues we had with it. What would you have preferred to see instead with this series?
I'd like to have seen Malaysian episode.
Well, that's a good one.
I'm just gonna put. I mean, look, I think it's weird because the show is called Street Food Volume 1 Asia.
Depending where you're looking, right? I think
Yeah.
on Netflix it lists it that way.
So it's called Street Food and then Volume 1 Asia, whatever. And it's not even Southeast Asia. They go as far as India, they go to Philippines, they go up to Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, Indonesia. They don't do China. Interesting. They don't do Hong Kong, which has got a big sort of hawker street food culture.
Yeah.
And they don't do Malaysia, which is also got, I think, be biased as I may be, a big street food culture.
are we biased or are we just right? You know, are we just?
are we? Come
do
on.
we just have?
Do we have a point?
Come on.
Do we? Are we just? Yeah.
Here we go,
So
dude.
I have to say, like this is completely true, right? So the first time I saw this trailer, I was really excited. I thought, oh my God, Chef's Table, but street food. This is finally a series I can get behind.
I was wondering if
And
I was going to be wandering in the background of any of the scenes on Down the Lore.
yeah.
So, the city started like filing through and I just thought, okay, so which one are they going to do? Penang? Are they going to do KL? Oh my God, the possibilities, what they're going to talk about. And then they had the audacity not to include Malaysia. And I said out loud, nope. And at that point, the series was canceled for me because I wasn't going to watch it. Fortunately, I had to watch it for the show.
Yeah.
But like, I wouldn't have watched this otherwise.
Yeah.
Good day to you, sir. You get nothing.
None of that. Netflix, goodbye.
Yeah. Because like, so a part of me is just like, ooh, maybe they're just saving Malaysia for like Volume 2. Malaysia.
But I'm wondering whether that's going to be Volume 2 is going to be Europe or South
No,
America.
but Europe, does Europe have street food though?
Well, I mean, you can get chips on the street everywhere, really.
So like, look, Latin America, South America, I get it. They've got big street food culture. I mean, even if they go into the greater African continent, Middle East has got a great big one. But, I'm just like, come on, man, Malaysia.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm just a little annoyed at that. A little,
And
just a wee bit.
I don't feel like it's biased. I don't feel like it's national pride or anything. It is a little bit of that, let's be fair.
I reckon it was just when they heard the guy from Mac and Sutra say, like, we don't really have any food we don't have any language in Singapore. So the thing that pulls us together, we've got Malay, Chinese, and everything here, and Indians in here. What pulls together is the food. And it's like, all right, we can tick off Malay and Indian then. We're good.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
I mean, we already did Delhi, but I guess we'll squeeze that in somewhere.
We'll squeeze that, yeah. I just find it hilarious. I think, it's the... Yeah,
It's such a choice.
it's a choice. Yeah, you're right. This and like, look, I made a couple of the team members sort of pull this up on a map, right? Like, you look at it on a map. It's India, Philippines.
As a whole.
Yeah, it's just like, you go to Thailand, you go to Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Indonesia, Singapore. And then what?
They were
like a
in
donut.
Singapore. They could have just gone to Johor.
It's not a big trip. Yeah, exactly. So that's sort of like, it feels like they don't like us or something.
Taking it a bit personal.
But I know, I just got a little worked up there. I haven't had lunch, you see, so.
And I do get why they might have been hesitant. There are similarities in our cuisine, right? Like with Indonesian food with Singaporean food. Sure.
But they even used gula melaka in one of her dishes, right, in the Singapore episode.
And then they referred to it as palm sugar, I think.
Oh, did they later on?
Yeah, I think they did, yeah. Which is just also a decision they had to make.
I get why there isn't an episode, but also we could have just had that episode.
Do you really
instead.
get why,
I don't.
though?
I'm trying to give Netflix the benefit of the doubt.
I when I had people ask me, because apparently because I do a movie review show, people think I'm like pals with Netflix, and they're like, "Why did Netflix not do that, Bahi?" I'm like, "I
Why,
don't know.
Bahi?
I don't know who they are." But like for me, I just sort of like just to stoke that national pride fire thing. I'd be like, "Oh, it's because their office is in like, Singapore." I don't know. I just don't know why I do that. But yeah, no. Look, I think they missed a beat there. I think there's a lot of options we could do.
So yeah, those options. If they do come here, what do you think?
Oh, mate. I think we need an entire season.
If they do, yeah, the entire season. But also, I think they need to get a host or something. Like somebody, let
There
people
has to be
explain
something, yeah.
the food. I'm getting, I always make the joke about, people, wine snobs who talk about wine. It's like, oh, I'm getting the back of a Ford Cortina.
Yeah, yeah.
It's 1979. I'm getting
Little
smelly socks.
leather, yeah.
I'm getting the inside of an old handbag. Like even that tells you something.
Gives you something, yeah, an
It's boring
indication.
when
Of
they're-
something.
I
yeah.
feel like there shouldn't be a host though, because there's been a bunch of Malaysian street food host shows. We've got Henry Golding doing one. Like we don't
really?
need another one.
Yeah.
I think if it's gonna do the same thing where they speak to people, let us tell their story. I'd be happy with that. Get a food historian again, get a food writer, whatever.
Get the people who make the dish to explain the dish to people.
Yeah, they should maybe do that.
What the flavor is, like
Yeah.
why this is so important
Yeah,
to them,
yeah.
and what the flavor they aim for. Because
Yeah.
that's something I can, you never get across in these shows. It's like, well, I was aiming for this, and I made changes. There's the griddle kind of pancake thing they make from flour. In one of the
baffle
not the
from
baffle
South
is another
Korea.
wider one where it's a guy.
Okonomiyaki in Osaka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that guy's like, I know I'm going to have to put in loads of hours in the kitchen, but I'll eventually put my new spin on it. And it's like, well, what is it you like about this?
Yeah.
And what new spin would you add? And don't just say adding tempura flakes, because everyone does that in Osaka.
Yeah,
apparently.
it just feels like they cut the camera a little too quick. There's just a beat that they could have left it a little longer, that made it a bit more worthwhile to paying attention to these people.
And explain how the flavor profile
Yeah.
works and comes together.
And I think they could have leaned onto that idea of preserving culture, right? Because it felt like they kind of wanted to do that, but kind of ran out of steam
They
with it.
mentioned it but didn't show it.
But
They did
didn't
it
show
in
it.
abstract
Yeah.
terms, right?
But also they didn't do it for all of the episodes. Some of the episodes are really big on like, oh, this is my culture, I'm trying to preserve it, or like my parents were getting old, so I wanted to take over the shop from them. They did some of that, but not everybody had that, right?
Then there's the other lady doing the knife cut noodles, which is just like, I had to do this because my husband ran up debts 11 years ago. And that's kind of
kind
cool.
of pretty straightforward. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, when they talk, there's one moment of like inserted drama when they're talking about like in the 80s or 90s, I think it was mid 90s, right? She had problems with the other vendors.
With the other vendors,
and
yeah.
they just keep shooting this other lady
Just like
across
out of-
the way.
Yeah, that was a
and playing
little,
ominous
a little
music.
unnecessary, I thought. But yeah, I think they missed a beat in just the way they manage the episode, the way they manage the content, and they missed a massive beat by not coming here. Sorry, still a little.
So ask the people
still
who make the
bitter,
food.
yeah.
Ask the punters who are eating the food, because they're always shooting.
It's always full, right?
It's always
The
Vox
shops
Pops,
are
right?
always-
They're always
yeah.
like shooting. They get some of the people talking about it. What dishes should they put in a Malaysian version?
I want to see ice kacang. I want to see chendol. Yeah, I want. There should be a whole episode on just dessert on kueh.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
There's so
Yeah.
many possibilities.
Yeah.
Or
And I
napam
mean,
balik
then
something.
Penang, then
Yeah.
Johor. Look, don't forget our East Malaysian guys, right?
Exactly.
Sarawak laksa would be crazy. And it just, look, where do you even start, right? And that's kind of the problem.
You can tell that they tried to do this with the Singapore episode, right? Because it's a melting pot of cultures. So they had one of this and one of this and one of this, but it's like y'all could have just done a whole series on Malaysia to just do that. It's
Yeah.
not that hard.
All right, then, if they can only, but each show has 3. What 3 do
Okay,
you
so
pick?
let's call 3, right? Okay. I'm gonna go nasi lemak. Nasi lemak. You got it.
Classic.
Roti canai, and then just a little nod to our brothers over there, Sarawak laksa.
I don't really like laksa. I'm done with that show, man. I love roti canai, but just laksa, I don't get it.
I want to see a kind of bit of everything. I think I'm gonna have one noodle in there, but then have also like a nasi kukus in there. I don't know what else. We have no food apparently. I don't know. And then have a dessert. Have an ice kacang. Have a chendol. I wanna learn about cake lapis. Oh, let's do that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, kuih lapis, yeah.
So it's strange that we weren't featured also if we consider the fact that, Malaysia is also sort of facing some of the struggles that the other Asian nations are also facing. And mainly that's gentrification. That's also with the rising costs of, just being able to rent a property out in a certain space. So, we have the struggles. We have really good stories. We have really good food. So just being missed out on like that just still feels a bit sour.
Slighted. right?
Slighted.
I think Julian put it really strongly. Right? They made a choice to not feature us, and that seems like a strange.
They made a choice to feature Putu Piring when they could have really featured everything else. Not saying that Putu Piring isn't great, which it is. It's fantastic, but y'all could have come here and do it. You know, could have done Dodol too.
We are talking today about Netflix's street food series, Street Food Asia. Let us know what you think. Have you watched it? Have you just decided not to watch it because we were left out? Drop us a note at movies@bfm.my or on social media. We're at skipintrony. This is the evening edition, BFM 89.9.